2 Afghan illegal immigrants who raped a child in a park are living a life of luxury in a cushy youth prison. The 2 Afghans brutally dragged a 15-year-old girl into the bushes and raped her. 6:50 p.m. Leamington Spa. Inside a town park, 2 illegal migrants, Janjahansp and Israel, encircled a lone girl. 8 seconds later, she was dragged into the bushes. The unthinkable happened. 20 seconds in, she screamed in terror, only for the second attacker to clamp his hand over her mouth. The outcome? The court ordered their transfer to a young offenders institution, a facility where, according to insiders, they have access to private en-suite showers, Xbox consoles, and cash for sweets. The ruling stood solely because the criminals swore they were under 18, a claim impossible to verify, as they had arrived illegally on small boats without a single document and speak no English. The beginning of the end had begun. At 8:23 p.m. from London to Birmingham, waves of protesters emerged, chanting, "Save our kids," and demanding the immediate resignation of Karma. By 8:32 p.m., 35 fires were burning across the country. Hotels and cars were in flames. Barricades were urgently deployed to shield besieged migration centers. The crowds were no longer chanting. They were engaging in battle. 9:12 p.m. First, fireworks were launched into police lines. Officers deployed iron line tactics for severe disorder, only to be met with a hail of glass bottles and cries of traitors of the nation. Media outlets ran reports declaring that far-right extremists had flooded Britain, warning that control over districts was slipping away. In South Birmingham, a voice crackled over the radio. Sector 8 is lost. These lunatics are breaking through. Karma remained silent, issuing no address for 4 hours. By that time, the mobs had become unstoppable. Additional police platoon were scrambled from regions that were still quiet, and officers began deploying dogs to intimidate the rioters. But they didn't care about anything anymore. Within 4 hours, the toll was grim. 39 arrests, 62 hospitalized on both sides. Opposition leader Nigel Farage declared, "How many hundreds of sexual crimes go unsolved? Or thousands?" While police platoon suppress protesters, criminals with machetes are out hunting in our cities. This TikTok clip hit 7.3 million views. In just 3 hours, true chaos ensued. 16 storefronts were shattered. Protesters began storming abandoned shops. In London, the crowd held aloft photos of the 15-year-old victim, demanding to know why the criminals had not yet been deported. Outside Downing Street, an American reporter attempted to corner Starmer, but the Prime Minister simply pressed a smartphone to his ear and vanished inside with rapid strides, pretending to be busy. Suddenly, footage surfaced online showing rioters tearing apart a police van. Within 1 hour, nothing remained of the vehicle but a charred skeleton. At 10:40 p.m., the police initiated cavalry line tactics. Dozens of mounted officers launched a countercharge, driving back the waves of masked protesters. Then came the breaking point. At a counter-protest in London, a voice rang out, "Leniency for these 2 arrivals. We must consider the cultural background of those who committed the sexual assault." That was the spark. A hooded mob began to breach the defense of the police platoon, specifically deployed to keep the opposing factions apart. 11 hotels reported fires from unexplained causes. Fire brigades failed to reach the scenes. Burnt-out vehicles littering the roads made passage impossible. Footage emerged on TikTok showing a column of armored vehicles rolling down a public highway. Officially, it was labeled a logistical deployment operation. Britons on social media didn't care. The caption, "They are leaving the barracks," racked up 8.4 million views. Talk of martial law began to spread. On Twitter, tens of thousands of Americans began urging their relatives to leave Britain immediately. Finally, an address by Keir Starmer was promised by dawn. At 2:10 a.m., the arrest tally climbed to 82. Outside Buckingham Palace, a 21-year-old American journalism student posted a video that captured a single, illuminated window where the king was presumed to be in residence. Through the glass, the footage revealed frantic movement, figures pacing rapidly, scattering documents. As the roar intensified, the window was abruptly slammed shut, the heavy curtains drawn tight. Yet, the king offered no words. The monarch had been silent for 9 hours. Online, the narrative fractured. One side argued that the crown's silence in the face of historic crisis signaled a collapse far deeper than the public knew. The other claimed the monarch was complicit, standing shoulder to shoulder with Starmer. The prime minister's address was delayed once again, pushed to 12 p.m. The collapse of order didn't happen because the police ran out of shields. It happened because the public ran out of patience. The fury burning through the country wasn't ignited by a rumor, but by a confirmed reality that the judicial system has been inverted. The court's decision to treat violent adult men as vulnerable children wasn't a mistake. It was a feature of a broken asylum protocol. Translated for the taxpayer, it means your safety is secondary to a criminal's comfort. What the nation witnessed wasn't just violence, but a collective rejection of that hierarchy. Parents in Wolverhampton didn't march because they hate migrants. They marched because they saw a system that gives boxes to sexual attackers while telling victims to stay quiet. K. Starr has spent his tenure insisting that competence would replace chaos. Tonight, that competence looks like a prison cell, equipped with designer amenities for individuals who shouldn't even be in the country. When a government proves it cannot distinguish between a child and a grown man, it loses the moral authority to command the streets. The chaos was inevitable because the betrayal was absolute. The men who attacked that girl entered through the very loopholes Starmer's government called necessary humanitarian protections, and the silence from Number 10 suggests they are more afraid of legal challenges from activists than they are of the burning streets outside their window. Intelligence reports have long warned that the child refugee route was being exploited by adult males. Tonight, those warnings manifested as a national emergency. The crowds surrounding the migration centers are not organized by shadowy elites. They are mobilized by a primal instinct to protect the next generation. The government has the tools to stop this. They have the technology to verify ages. They have the power to deport. But under the administration, decisive action is paralyzed by fear of bad headlines. Britain used to be a country where justice was blind. Now it is a country where justice is afraid. The two new arrivals, legally classified as children despite physical evidence to the contrary, sat in comfort while the streets outside burned in their name. The public sees this disparity. The public feels this betrayal. And tonight, the public finally rejected it. Because when a taxpayer realizes their money is funding the leisure of those who harm their children, the social contract is incinerated. Tonight wasn't just a riot, it was a verdict. Leaked memos from regional commanders expose The paralyzing logic currently gripping. The force. Defend the institution at all costs. Do not engage protesters unless the perimeter is breached.